Hello everybody. Thanks for coming. I'm Lydia Ruth. Welcome to Homemaking Radio and welcome to the Manse. And today I have a lot to talk about. I just hope I do a better job than I did last time when I was trying to fight the noise of the farm machinery going past us while I was outside. I just would love to do more of this outside, but the noise is, I'd have to pick a holiday because on a holiday like Labor Day, Memorial Day, and Thanksgiving and all these things, everybody stays away, so I might be able to do it then. And so today, I hope that in whatever circumstances you are enduring it as best you can. Sometimes I can be in a situation where I have had some kind of calamity or something happen in my life, and I really am learning to do the dignity and stiff upper lip to try to cope with it more without constantly rehearsing it. And if you recall, Lydia in Pride and Prejudice had run off and shocked her family so much, sent her mother into bed in illness because it was so upsetting. And when Mr. Collins came by to gloat over this family, or maybe just out of curiosity to get more information about this problem and this, they were so embarrassed about it all. He said, "Well, I've heard about your sister Lydia, and just wondering how you're doing." And Elizabeth said, "We're enduring it as best we can." And so that's what one of the things I want to learn as far as character, that everything that we endure, and you remember endurance means durable. So everything that happens to us is also an opportunity for God's glory and for us to develop some kind of character. And so today I want to talk about many different things, and I will read to you out of Wives and Daughters, but first we're going to go through some scriptures. And I would like to mention about this. Years ago I read an article called The Second Sleep, and it was about the sleeping patterns of people before the 5-day work week, 8-hour day work week came, and how people could go to sleep maybe very early but wake up in the middle of the night for a few hours and then go back to sleep till 8 or 9 o'clock. This was probably mostly when everyone was more agrarian. And I have experienced that second sleep. Sometimes I wake up in the night and can't get back to sleep, but I'll take a hot bath or drink some warm drink and listen to something or read something and fall asleep. And then the next time I wake up, I am more rested than I was when I had a proper sleep. That second sleep is so much more relaxing for the brain and the muscles and everything like this. It just felt wonderful. Felt like I'd been on holiday. So don't worry about that second sleep. You might have a second sleep after getting up in the night. Now anymore, because of my vitality, if I get up in the night, I don't worry about it or stress over it. I say, oh, what shall I do? And I really love ironing, so I always have a few things there to iron. And ironing is very relaxing, especially with the steam iron and steam coming up, and I can get a lot done. And lately I have been pressing my old patterns, the ones that were just stuffed in the envelope, and I'll get them out and press them all out and fold them according to the piece. Now I don't fold them all together, but fold them according to the piece with the name of the piece up, like sleeved, so I can see it when I open it. And just the ironing, just the sense of rhythm, and just this softness of it, and it's quiet, not waking anybody up. And so I'll just do something and make a little progress in my house, which is totally falling apart. This is all staged, ladies. I'm not going to show you the rest, but I do have hope to do better. And as long as we are living, there is always a hope. So I'm going to read a couple of scriptures for you, and one of my purposes here is to encourage ladies to enjoy being at home, to encourage ladies to live out the Titus 2 role of being keepers at home, which is also mean workers at home, is we have to stave off the enemy of distress, stress and cortisol and all the things that besiege us to try to thwart us from that rest and that nice home life. There's always somebody trying to sabotage it. It seems like if it's not the news, it could be someone else that you know. So I'm going to just read a few scriptures to you first before you get started. And the purpose of this broadcast is so that you can listen while you do something else. And you could even sleep if you want to. So here is one of the things that I want to talk about, and that is when you, as the day wears on at home, you might feel very heavy about something. It just seems like it's just unbearably heavy. And I remember, do you remember in this movie, Princess Cut, where this girl was having a very hard time with her personal relationships and her mother? She was in tears, and her mother said that her mother had told her, after such a similar thing happening to her, that weeping may come at night, but joy comes in the morning. And so I wanted to read that to you about how it's always darkest before the dawn. So first let's find out what the dawn is, the dusk. Let's find out about the dusk, and that's just before, in the evening, and that's when you will feel your heaviest if you've had a problem, if you've had a sudden shake-up in your life, or if maybe you're listening to the news or keeping track of things, or just waiting for every bit of your country to get under control. Let me just read this to you. What does dusk mean? Dusk is the period of time between sunset and nightfall. Okay? So, now let's find out what dawn means, because there was a saying, it's always darkest before the dawn. And what that meant was your emotions. Your emotions are low towards the dusk. And dusk is the period of time before nightfall. It's just, I always like to say it's 4 o'clock in the afternoon and then on. But dawn, D-A-W-N, refers to the first light of day, or the first morning, the first appearance of light in the morning, followed by sunrise. So dawn isn't sunrise. It might be the blue light, which comes right after the darkness. There's this blue light, and then there's the dawn, and then there's sunrise. These are things that you need to know if I'm going to homeschool you. And your children need to know these things, and that's why I read the Eric Sloan books to you on the weather. And learning about these different things helps you to manage your thinking and your emotions and understand them, and not panic at every little thing. And so I'll read this scripture to you that the mother read to her daughter in Princess Cut. If you have a chance, go and watch that. It's free on YouTube, and it's about a young girl living at home with her parents, who wants to be married someday but seems to be going down the wrong path trying to find someone and ending up in disappointment after disappointment. And here's what she told her, and it's from Psalms 30, verse 5. If you're taking notes, you can write this down. Weeping may endure for a night, but joy comes in the morning. And what it means is this: your story doesn't end in the night. It doesn't end at that time of day. The night is temporary. When things aren't working out for you and you feel like you're going the wrong way, don't get discouraged. It's simply a night season. And so what I think a lot of children, young people need to learn is this is disappointing, and you feel terrible tonight. It's like the end of your life. It's like the end of the world. But in the morning, you feel a little bit differently. In fact, maybe a lot differently if you've had an opportunity to have that second sleep. And you may need it. And so don't fight it if you wake up in the night, because you can do something. You can read something, you can do something, and then you may fall back asleep. If not, I will tell you, you won't be awake forever. Okay, so we've done that one. Now, here's another verse, and that is, do not be afraid of sudden terror, or as we would say, terror. Do not be afraid of sudden terror, nor of trouble from the wicked when it comes, for the Lord will be your confidence and will keep your foot from being caught. That is such an interesting statement there, and it comes from Proverbs 3, 25 through 26. Do not be afraid of sudden terror. Now, things that come on suddenly, that's a trigger for us to remember. Anything that comes on suddenly, be wary, because it creates terror. And we could go into more about that, but I will tell you where that is so that you can. It's Proverbs 3, verses 25 to 26. And it's very important. And then the other one was the word fret. Fret. It says, fret not, it only causes harm. I'm trying to think where that was. I'll find it again here. And there were several verses that had in the Bible that had this word fret not. And then it would repeat it and says, fret not, it only causes harm. Well, a long time ago, before everyone was aware of distress or stress or cortisol or anything that mentally put pressure on you, God was always warning people about this problem of fret. So I want to tell you about it. It says, fret not, it only causes harm. And that was from Psalms 37. And so let's look up that word fret and see what it means. Now, it can be a noun or it can be a verb. Now, fret not, that would be emotion. But a fret, there's other kinds of frets, like the little fret on the guitar, you know, that you press to change the tone, and other types of frets. But here's what it is when it is a verb. It means to disturb, to irritate, to vex, to wear out, to be agitated, to be vexed. So fret. So the verb, it calls it a verb transitive. So it's the fret as an instrument as a part of an instrument, or a fret, which means to be disturbed, to be unhappy. And it says, fret not because of evildoers, and then later on it says it only causes harm. So we know the evil causes harm, and in our case, evildoers might be our media. It seems like whether conservative or liberal, it's still it doesn't give you much hope, does it? So I wanted you to know that, and these are things you can put in your little notebook. And so now that is over, I want to talk about, well, I've talked about being discouraged at night, and in morning there's more hopefulness, and that's why your rest is so important. Weeping may endure for a night, but joy comes in the morning. It's always darkest before the dawn. So we want to learn about hopefulness for the home. Be not afraid of sudden terror. And so let me just go through my scattered notes here, and I will tell you that I have been watching more of this, or listening to it. I don't watch it anymore. I can just listen to it while I do big jobs, you know, those grim jobs. So I'll read to you a little bit out of Wives and Daughters, and we'll discuss more of this in just a minute. And last time I read about, it ended on this little story of the happy golden summer days of a 17-year-old girl. So now we're on chapter 8, Drifting into Danger is what it's called. On Thursday the quiet country household was stirred through all its fibers with the thought of Roger coming home. Mrs. Hamley had not seemed quite so well, or in quite such good spirits for 2 or 3 days before, and the squire himself had appeared to be put out without any visible cause. They had not chosen to tell Molly that Osborne's name had only appeared very low down in the mathematical tripos. So all that their visitor knew was that something was out of tune. Roger had failed in some of his tests at college, and they had such high hopes for him. And she hoped that Roger's coming home would set it to rights, for it was far beyond the power of her small cares and wiles. Now, I will read more of that to you, maybe the next time. And I liked the way that Elizabeth Gaskell describes these little tiny emotions, like Molly going around thinking something is wrong. Everyone's acting like it's not quite, things are not quite right, but no one has told me anything. We all feel that way sometimes, don't we? And so I wanted to tell you about my slow start, and that is when I'm out of sorts. Let's say I get up in the morning and I just can't quite get myself mentally prepared for the day ahead. I'll start out slow. I'll just reach over and pick up something and move it, clean it, whatever, and I don't put a lot of pressure on myself. But today, before I begin anymore, I want to share my teacup with you, and it's from Grace's Teaware. It doesn't have a name, but I got these because I have a lot of young boys in my family that like to drink tea, and the grandchildren and the grandsons. And that has a boy fishing on one side, and this is an old house. And so I wanted them, I thought they would enjoy that. And the tea that I'm drinking is from Traditional Medicinal, and it's called Nettle Leaf. It really makes a person feel kind of balanced, sends good feelings, and a feeling of being settled with some of these herbs. Now, if you don't like tea, you don't have to drink it, but it's always fun to have the teacup and do that. And I wanted to also show you, as we have been talking about in my last video, I talked about this book, The Lost Art of Dress, and how to inspire your daughter or yourself for, and I talked about posters. You know, we used to put, I said put posters and pictures around the house that would inspire your children to dress well. Well, we might not be able to do that, but last year I got this calendar called Edmund Blair Layton 2024, and it's published on, it's through Amazon, and it's published by someone in New Zealand. And I so appreciate it. And on the back, of course, you can see all the paintings, and these are his paintings. And one of the things I liked about Edmund Blair Layton, who, I don't know what his dates were, I think it was probably 1800s. He had been an architect and then an artist. And so one of the things I liked about him was that his paintings are clean, and there's no nudity, and it showed the costume of maybe previous centuries, not his own, but a previous century. And he always has the architecture in the background. So in order to inspire dress, I looked at some of these paintings here, and of course every month you can hang it up, and whoever you have in your home, if she's a young girl or even someone your age, someone who's vital, these can be very inspiring. Now I'll show you why. You know, this one here was the one that had the little shawl scarf around the neck. Those were quite handy, and I have said that I would show you how to make one of those or trace it for you, and have not done it. My life is just chaos around here right now. But you can adapt anything you wear. Let's say all you have is a t-shirt and a denim skirt. You could put one of those little shawl collar scarves around it, and be just, I mean, there's really not much difference in the clothing of previous eras. If you look at it carefully, we have everything we need to look more traditional. And I really liked also this inspiration of the outdoors and nature that went with his paintings. Very interesting man. His wife sewed together he didn't use models. His wife made a great big doll and stuffed it, and then they bought costumes, or she made the costumes and put them on so he would have a model to paint. And that's how he got his inspiration. And all of these pictures in this calendar showed young women doing something very noble. There she is reading, or she's walking in the garden and she's appreciating, the nature and the flowers. And here's one of women hanging out clothes. I mean, we need to restore these values to our own lives. And if you've got children that have disappointed you, or they're not interested in that, I've often said, do everything you wanted them to be. Be everything you wanted them to be. And that is so inspiring. And so I've shown you that, and now I'm going to talk to you about what kind of older woman are you going to be? Now, what you don't understand is everything you go through is preparing you to be that older woman. And now you're going to go through life. If you develop a good character and a pleasing personality that isn't abrasive to everybody around you, you have a better chance of being a gracious older woman. Whereas some women don't realize that some of their conversational habits and their attitudes are just going to harden more as they get older. So to keep that youthfulness and that influence and that softness, or to increase the softness as you get older, you have to correct yourself in the things that happen to you. For example, what are our reactions to sudden terror? Now remember, I just read that scripture to you. Do be not afraid of sudden terror. And I used to just seize up and be terrorized and upset at anything that happened that would be a major upheaval or disturbance in my life. But these last few years, when I learned about, I have these friends that are caregivers, and when I learned about personal care and how important that is to spend time cleaning yourself and grooming yourself, time in front of the mirror, a little time to sing, a little time to read something aloud, time for your coffee or whatever it is you have, things that you enjoy doing, time for that. And how the women of old, they didn't even call it personal care. They just knew that after every effort there had to be a rejuvenation, or there had to be a restoration of some kind, or you had to recharge. They just knew that. No one ever said anything. And there was never a book written about it or anything. But I have noticed that since we've been more aware of this, that I can hear some of the worst stuff and just sit there, and it doesn't permeate me as badly. I take it in, but then I realize this is sudden terror. We're not supposed to be afraid of it. Also, if you finally say to yourself, I'm just going to wait and see what God does. If there's nothing, that is, if there's nothing that you can do anything about. I need to turn off that noise here. If there's nothing you can do anything about, if you can't do anything about it, then we have to say, well, we're just going to have to do the best we can under the circumstances. And sometimes, it's Job had these terrible, miserable, he called them miserable comforters, because the people that would come around when he was failing in life and he was losing everything, and then he had these terrible boils, he had terrible health and everything, they'd come around, and he called them miserable comforters. And sometimes going through something that is very hard, you're better off without all those friends, because they don't say the right thing, or they're just making it worse, or they're just digging for more information, or they're trying to see if you're going to crack up, or they're just wanting more out of you. And so I remember someone saying they'd rather be alone than to have too much attention when something goes wrong. Let's say they lose their house, or their husband has lost their job, or there's just been, some one thing after another happen. And I heard someone say they'd rather be alone than to have too much attention, or even though people are, trying to be sympathetic, whatever. And I remember Marianne was getting so wrapped up in Sense and Sensibility. Remember that? She was getting so wrapped up in this poetry, and she was reading about Guinevere, and she was reading about this or that, and her mother said, it's a rather pathetic way to end your life for love. And she said, Marianne said, oh, what could be more glorious to die for love? And so let's put it in this perspective. Let's use her little expression, what could be more glorious? And I have known of people who were just alone, but they were happy, they were content, and they eventually preferred to be alone with God. So when people want to descend on you, and you've got all this chatter around you, and it could be your social media too. You have to be really careful of that. Let's pull back a little bit and not bare ourselves to everyone, or to just anyone. And let's think of Marianne, but say instead, to be alone with God, what could be more glorious? And to start to pull back and be alone with God, because that will build you up. Make sure you can be alone. Yes, there will be loneliness, but we reach out to God and He brings us what we need. And so we just have to have faith in that. And another thing I would like to say about the sudden terror of the world, the news and the media and all this, and that is, years ago I wanted to keep a journal. Well, this is before the modern journalist came, and the gratefulness journal, and how to keep a happy journal, and how a journal could make you how it could restore you and everything. And it was just one bad thing after another that was happening in life and in the world, and so I just quit because I didn't want anybody to read it later on. And lately, though, I've learned what real good journaling can do for you. But I thought about this. Everyone says, oh, everything's so bad, and the world is, they have all kinds of sayings now about how bad everything is. But we need to learn to look for the good too. Because why everybody's saying, why are things so bad, and why does this happen, and why does that happen? But I heard Mr. S say in a sermon years ago, why don't we sit around and say, why does God allow sunshine? Why does God allow happiness? Why does He allow us any kind of pleasure in life and prosperity? Why does our food taste good today? Why is that? Why does God allow so much comfort? Why does God allow so much beauty? Let's look at the scenery around here. Why does God allow so much beauty? Why does God allow talent? Why does God allow this artist to paint these beautiful pictures that inspire us so much? Sit around asking why God allows so much that is beneficial to us. And why does God allow us to have, whatever, and the people that we love, why does God allow it? Instead of asking, instead of saying it's all so bad. So let's start, if you've got a little journal, it might be fun to have a little saying, if it's so bad, if life is so bad, why does this, why am I taking a walk today, and why is that flower blooming? This is interesting. Start looking at the bright side too, because if you shut off the news, if you shut off the media, and you look around you, you're going to see things that we're so clouded with information that we don't even notice. There's a tree there that's growing. that has little tiny pieces of grass around it, and why can't we learn to appreciate it and enjoy it and thank God for it, and thank God for everything that you see, no matter how tiny. And so what kind of older woman will you be if you don't have that looking for the good in life? And wasn't there an old saying, ladies, it is better to light one candle than to curse the darkness? And we cannot let ourselves, fall into this feeling of despair. Remember in Anne of Green Gables that she wanted Anne, the orphan girl, to say her prayers, and Anne said, I just feel too much despair and I can't pray. And it was their bedtime prayers, and Marilla said, to despair is to turn your back on God. And she called her a little heathen. And so what kind of older woman are you going to be if you cannot lift others up? And to edify. Remember the word edify. I will do edify next time. Edify means to build up and to improve the mind. So make it your middle name to be edify, and see what we can do to build up ourselves and others and make life better for other people in our homes. And so what kind of older woman are you going to be if you are cultivating those good things right now in your life? Then you're going to be the older woman you desired when you were younger. How many of you, when you were younger, wish there had been some older women that had some sense and that were homey and encouraging younger women to love their homes and to be happy at home and to be good housekeepers, or to do things that enhanced home life? You can be that person that you missed out on. Let's do that, okay? So how many of us wish that we'd had ancestors that left us notebooks and diaries that talked about how they handled things there's a scripture that talks about when the enemy comes in like a flood, God will raise up a standard. And when life kind of floods in on you, wouldn't it have been nice to have had grandmother's notes about all that? But they didn't really talk about it very much because they just assumed that was part of life, and they probably didn't spend too much time mulling over it. They just picked themselves up and got on with it. And wasn't there a song back in the 1950s by some, what we called the crooner type of music, and it was pick yourself up, dust yourself up, and start all over again. And every day is a new day. It's just renewable. It's just like you had a reset. And so what to do? So we would have liked to have had more clues from the people before us, our grandmothers, our great-grandmothers, about what they did in sudden terror or just sudden calamity. I'm sure they didn't dwell on it, and but they always wanted to do better. And so the best thing to do is move forward and do better and make some progress in your life. You don't just sit there with a house crashed down around you. You start picking stuff up. You start rebuilding. And there are plenty of examples of the little creatures in the scriptures. When you knock down a spider's web, he just rebuilds it. And so the scriptures talk about be like that, So let's talk about sudden calamity. Okay? Fret not, it only causes harm. Be not afraid of sudden calamity. And then, so here are some ideas. Let's take what you have and be a good steward of it. And what does a steward do? A steward is in charge of all of his master's affairs, his things, everything. And so God we're stewards in charge of what God's blessed us with. We have to be good stewards of it. Keep your house as well organized and orderly as you can, so that if there is sudden calamity, you can find things. you can easily get through your house. Someone gets sick or has some kind of problem, that they can get through the house and that everything's available. They don't have to move things so that someone can get into the bathroom or open the fridge. I don't want you to look and see what my calamity house is right now, but I'm taking time off from it to talk to you. So be a good steward of your living conditions. Be a good steward. Don't sit there. I mean, you might sit there for a season and cry, but then you've got to get up and you've got to straighten it all out. Whenever one of my children got sick, at first I just clutch my throat, what's going on here? But then I noticed that as they rested more or, were cared for more, everybody goes through a little sickness, that they would recover, and I got used to that. But after the shock of it, my first instinct would be, let's change their bedding, let's wash their clothes, let's give them a bath, let's find something that they can keep down and eat. And it kept me really busy, and I'd get the house really clean while they were asleep, because somehow that was my personal care, and it helped me keep me stable. And so be a good steward and be busy. Be busy. Don't deplete your mind and don't deplete your body. That means you've got to stop sometimes and refurnish yourself. You've got to recharge. And whatever it is you like, whether it's just sitting still and looking out the window with a cup of coffee, that's good for you. Now, one of the things we learned when we were younger was to shake our hands like this and shake our feet or our shoulders, because it shook off any kind of feeling of anxiety. And doesn't mean it will take it completely away. And be aware of your circumstances around you, your life around you, and do what you can do. We can do what we can do. About what we can't do anything about, just let it go. And there are other people that maybe are taking care of it. And don't get too caught up in the hype of life around us. Take care of what is before us and what is on our side of the street, what is our business. The other thing that's real handy to know is whatever happens in your home, in your life, with your family, with the people we care about, with things we care about, whatever disaster there is, it's not new. We aren't the only ones that ever experienced it. There have been people with problems, the same problems before us. It's not, we aren't the only ones that this has ever happened to. If you get sick and you have a debilitating disease, you're not the first person that ever had that happen to you. And I'm not trying to be unsympathetic, but we can keep from putting too much burden on other people when we realize that it's not, I'm not the first person that ever ended up in a small house and a low income or anything like that. That's just an example, Let's say that you had to what they call retrench. Remember in Persuasion, where they had to retrench or something. They had to, uproot and go somewhere else. And you're not the first person. I'm not the first person that ever had to move away or ever had to pare down or ever lost a parent. And so we can't when we're talking about our own suffering and our own grief, we also have to remember that the people we're talking to, maybe they've already lost their parents and grandparents. And so while we're looking for some kind of comfort and sympathy, let's realize this is nothing new that isn't common to mankind. So be a good steward of whatever's around you, of whatever you can be busy. Don't deplete your mind and body. Restore yourself with creativity. Find something that I knew a lady who had to go a lot to a um, waiting rooms and hospitals and stuff with someone that she was in charge of. And so she took something with her that she could do with her hands. And I believe it was a great big embroidery kit or something like that. And nowadays you can get these little art paintbrushes that have water in the paintbrush. You know what I'm talking about? And you can take a little kit with you, and when you're having to sit, you can use it and be creative because it's so restorative. The other thing is, I've learned that if you have to go out and help other people, and there has been a disaster maybe in your life or your home, that you don't have to sit in a waiting room. You can stand up in it and you can walk around, which is better for you. So there are many people who are overcoming illness, and so should I give into should you give into the feelings of defeat? Well, of course we're going to feel defeated for a while, no matter what happens. And so our response to stress, it has to be biblical. And we look at some of the wars and the things that were mentioned in the scriptures, and some of the sadness and the death. Also, I'm curious about how people in the scriptures managed a lot of the disaster that went on. And so we need to learn how to do that, and how to be gracious, and how to be stalwart in a way. And always remember that it's like Job said, you know. He said, I came into this world with nothing, and I'll go out. And he said, the Lord giveth and the Lord taketh away. That's sad, isn't it? It just seems almost cruel sometimes. And so I wanted to talk about the home, because it is not just housekeeping. That becomes very mechanical, but it's the feeling and the atmosphere you bring into it, and how other people in your home will observe how you're doing it. Are you doing it with a vengeance, and are you doing it in an anger, cleaning house and sweeping and cleaning in anger? If you do that, then your children will just look at work and responsibility as something very negative. But if you can bring something sweet into it, if you can bring an attitude into it that is good and kind and lovely. The other thing is, I think we have to keep, I know I've harped on this a lot, but Philippians 4:8, whatever's good and whatever's lovely, to think on these things. How important it is to get your mind on that, because the world seems really dreadful, doesn't it? And you can get so caught up in it. And I'll just read that to you again, because there's more to it than you realize. Some people stop at Philippians 4:8, but there was more to it, and they didn't realize it. And it talked about what would happen. It says, whatever is true, whatever is honorable, whatever is just, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is commendable. You could do a whole, what you call semester of study on what is lovely. You could define it, and then you could go around showing yourself examples of it. Whatever is commendable. If there is any excellence, you could study the word excellence, you know. If there is anything worthy of praise, think about these things. Now, listen to this. Practice these things, and the God of peace will be with you. So go back to Philippians 4:8. Look at all that stuff and start practicing it. Just do one at a time. Practice these things. Now, what does it mean to practice? Well, there will be some people that will argue with you and say that some people are just born artists. They're just born and they just have all this talent. But for the most part, they have to learn to draw a line first, and they have to practice the line until they get it right, and then they have to draw a circle, and they have to practice that. So it's practicing. It means to do it over and over and repeat it. Rinse and repeat. And that's how you get this peace will come with you, will come to you. Practice these things, and the God of peace will be with you. So you've got to practice purity and loveliness and excellence. You have to practice it. That means you just do it until... Now, some people will quit. They'll say, I'm just no good at this. But if they practice enough, they might be able to master it. So let me finish Philippians 4, because here comes some more. I have learned in whatever situation I am to be content. Now, that doesn't mean that you're going to celebrate if things are not good and if there's all kinds of tragedy around you. It just means a contentment or an acceptance. And so he's just saying, I've decided, to let God's will be done, and to accept whatever happens. That doesn't mean we don't do our best to change things if we can, but if we can't, I know how to be brought low, and I know how to abound. In any and every circumstance, I have learned the secret of facing plenty and hunger, abundance and need. I can do all things through him who strengthens me. Isn't that interesting? So let me read it again. I have learned that in whatever situation I have to be content. We might need to study that word contentment for a little while. That doesn't mean that we're passive. That doesn't mean that we sit there and allow things to happen that shouldn't when we can do something. I know how to be brought low, and I know how to abound. In any and every circumstance, I have learned the secret of facing plenty. That means, when things are going well and prosperous, you really have to be more cautious with that, don't you? And facing hunger, abundance, and need. So there's contrast here. Facing when things are plentiful, and when things are not so plentiful and there's hunger. Facing when things are abundance, and when there is a need. I can do all things through him who strengthens me. So I want to read a little bit about the Once Upon a Time by Eric Sloan to change the subject here. The subject today was on what to do when there's a darkness around you in the political situation or even at home in your personal life. I also wanted to warn everybody, be careful what you share with people. Sometimes they can do more harm than good. And remember to make, I really want to emphasize this because I liked it, to be alone with God, what can be more glorious. And I had told stories of people that I knew or I had met back in the old days who had suffered great loss, but had learned to be quietly content about it and not share too much with people, because it was all considered part of life, and to be alone with God and to use God as your social media. Okay, so let me read about Eric Sloan's Once Upon a Time by Eric Sloan and the way life used to be. Now, of course, this is talking about the homesteading type of life. Not everybody lived like that, but he has a little section here that's so interesting. So if you wanted to get this book for your homeschool children, I believe this is by Dover Publications. Now, it was the homeschoolers that brought a lot of these old materials back into focus for people, because you could write to this publication company, Dover, and say, I know about I remember an old book, or I have an old book, and the name of it was this, and all you had to do was tell them a few things. They would find the book, and then they'd publish it and put it in their catalog. So someone found the Eric Sloan books, and you didn't have to send them the book, but they'd figure it out. And so this is his little thing about purpose here. And it was, the building of a home or farmstead that would accommodate your family for generations to come was once a profound personal lifetime purpose. So even though we don't, maybe build our own homes, maybe some of you do, but where we end up, we just make it into our own. And I decided when I moved into the manse here that I'd make it my own, and at least pretend. And I have a friend that she and I talk, and we talk about pretending, and we decided to make pretending great again. So the building of a home or farmstead that would accommodate your family for generations to come was once a profound personal lifetime purpose. Without purpose, we have less reason for being on earth. Yet if you ask people today what their life purpose is, few can come up with an immediate or sensible answer. Most think that we are here to, quote, become a success. Now, of course, the scriptures does talk about success, but it's talking about success in life according to how your character goes, because you need to have success, of course, in life. But to become a success, some people spell it as dollar signs. Purpose is something usually born in the home, and without purpose, life becomes like a lost dog running in circles. We all know people that maybe are even in their 50s by now that just don't seem to have a strong feeling of purpose in life. A lot of that could be because media, television, social media has sucked out that purpose. And while it's great to be social, we have to have a deep inner feeling of purpose that when our friends leave us, when we have great losses, we still have this deep inner feeling of purpose. I recall while traveling, now this man wrote this, I believe, in the 1940s, and this is a republication. So, I recall while traveling, picking up a young hitchhiker and offering to transport him as far west as I was going. On my way home, however, I encountered this same fellow headed in the opposite direction. "Where are you going now?" I asked him. "No particular place," he replied. "I just like to travel. There isn't anything interesting to do at home." Indeed, houses and homes have changed, and the architecture of our lives have been affected. That's why, here at the manse, I've tried to make it like an inn, and I've tried to make it feel established and make it feel like it's got some grounding, like when you're here and when all my descendants come, I feel like I've got the bookshelf, and I encourage them to find something of purpose to do here. And sometime I'll bring out the big bag of things that they made to put on some of the plays. As I told you last time, we did Goliath also, and they made all the armor, the helmet, and even the stones, and we made it all out of brown paper bags. There is an old saying that home is where the heart is, but the older and original spelling was where the hearth is. For the hearth was once the heart of the home, where a fire burned continually and year-round. The soup pot was started in autumn, and it never cooled during the entire winter. Each day something was added, becoming a different taste. The English often misnamed Dutch oven. In the brick wall of the fireplace was seldom without something baking inside. The true Dutch oven was either a tin reflective oven that faced the fire, or an iron pot with space for coals in the lid. In summer, fireplace cooking made the kitchen unbearably hot, so there was often an added wing to the north known as the summer kitchen, attached to the main house by a breezeway. With herbs hung from the ceiling, apple slices drying in hanging baskets, and bread being baked, there was a constant perfume of rich living in the old-time family kitchen, and it was the hospitable gathering place for the whole family, a far cry from today's stand-up counters and pristine plastic coldness of today's stark kitchen. One sampler sewn by a little girl in 1810 said it well. Pictures other rooms adorn, but in the kitchen home is born. I could read more about that to you later, but I wanted to share some things that we need to do, and I will put some links on some of the things that I'm interested in, so that you can understand it. And so there's one lady that I listen to on YouTube. Honestly, I can't tell you what her name is right now, but she's in her 80s. And she does makeup reviews, and she makes up her face and does makeup reviews like a product called e.l.f. And I always enjoyed listening to her because she lacks the childish affectation of constantly giving a little laugh, a little nervous laugh after everything you say. And I think that is something that as we grow more vital, we need to be careful of, because I think it's a nervous little laugh that tries to make people feel more comfortable, or we're laughing at ourselves, but it really doesn't go, doesn't go with. And so if I find her, I will put a link to what she did. Is while she was doing her makeup in this one video, one of her grandchildren called her, and they were talking about an upcoming storm. And I think they were in goodness, I can't think, maybe it was Texas, and she was so graciously talking to this obviously little boy, talking about how it's always wise to be cautious, and she just had this gracious tone that I really, really admired. And so I'll put her link there so you can watch her. And she also has trauma that comes into her life, but she doesn't put it. She has a demeanor that has contentment in it, that is so dignified and such a great example, and gives hope for the next generation. And we always need someone, don't we, to tell us how we handled, or how they can look back and see how we handled something. And I heard a lady say, when she got really bad news, and she was older than I was, and she said, "I'm not going to fall apart. I am not going to have a breakdown. Why should I?" And I thought that was interesting. But some people won't accept that. They're very disappointed. Another thing too is singing. Singing out loud in your house is so important, and it's really important for the kids to hear it. When I was growing up, our parents sang, and that was our music. And I told you how much I like rugby, and one of the things that I like about some of the Australasian rugby teams is their singing, and one of them was the All Blacks New Zealand team, rugby team, and I'll put a link to that too, where I think they were just in their locker room or something, and they were just singing, and they sang "Sweep Over My Soul" in the Maori language and then in English. And then the other thing was the Fiji team, that they're very remarkable. They sing a song after they have won a match. They will sing, "We have overcome by the blood of the Lamb and the word of the Lord. We have overcome." They're very humble, and they'll kneel afterwards. And then before a game, they have a song. I've forgotten what that was. Goodness, I wish I could remember the words. They were so sweet, but they sing them in English also, and in their native language and in the English. And if you hear these people singing, you realize these small countries, one of these countries, I believe it's Fiji, these rugby players do not have sports equipment or workout equipment, or these gyms, where you go and you work out and you develop your strength and everything. Instead, they run up and down sand dunes, and probably barefoot, and they sometimes, you know what a sand dune is? Well, here in Oregon we have them. So if you're climbing a sand dune, you know, if you don't hurry, when you get near the top of a sand dune, you have to run a little faster because it's going to collapse before you, right underneath you before you get to the top. So you know you have to speed up, and it's really hard. And if you've ever done that, you realize this, how hard it is. But another thing that they will do for their workout is there's a row of people in front, a row of players in front of them in this practice and this workout, and they push them up the sand dune. So here they are, they're bearing weight on their arms, and they're pushing up their teammate up the sand dune, and somebody behind them is pushing them. It's really interesting. And then, of course, a lot of their workout is done up and down the roads, and so you really have to admire these people. But these little small nations have a greatness in them, and these are the richest of men because they sing, and they'll sing before a match, they'll sing in between, and they will sing afterwards. And then another thing is, I was explaining to my son, because I have a son that's nearly 50, and he comes over and we play ball. And I was talking to him about rugby and reading him some of the rules and talking to him about some of these teams in the Polynesia, Micronesia, Australasia type of teams. And in America, we have a type of football where it has the positions, you know, and there'll be a linebacker, and there'll be a this, and there'll be a that, and there'll be a, and that's their whole career is spent being that. But in these teams, they just trade off, and their coach will say, well, today you're going to be this, and today you're going to be this, and they'll say, okay, and they play each part equally as well as their teammates. There's not one that only specializes in one thing. And I was talking to my oldest son about that, and he thought that was so remarkable, and he compared it to the Christian spiritual life, that we try not to be one talented. While some of us may have more strengths in other things, we also need to know how to have strength in other things, and that we're not one talented, that we're well-rounded, and that we can easily take over roles that we think probably we couldn't. And I was thinking about that, and I'll try to put some links so you can hear these people sing, because really we talk about, we hear that Make America Great Again. We're not going to have a great nation until we start singing again at home. That's where it all starts, because that's where your culture begins, is at home. So you start singing, and you don't have to sing a popular song, you just make up a song. I always tell the descendants when they come, because I'll go through the house and sing about, I'll see something and start singing about it, and I'll say there's a song for everything, and if there isn't, I'll just make up one. And so we're all getting pretty good at that. And like if it's time to do the dishes, I can make a song up for it. So ladies, let's remember to stay close to Christ. And I'm sorry this was so rambling, and I hoped I would do better this time than I did last time. I'm not sure if I have or not. So let's remember to edify. Let's remember to be good stewards. Let's remember to be busy. It's the best thing for your mind in the whole world. So ladies, thank you for all you do for me, and for being so kind and good and generous, and just making my life better all around. And I thank you so much, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.